Hello, horror fans. Welcome back to Jay versus Horror. I'm your host, Jay Wall, and tonight we got a special co-host with us. We got Emily Dunlap from Gag Me with a Knife. Emily, tell us about your podcast, what you guys are working on right now.
Okay, well, Gag Me with a Knife is a podcast about 80s slasher movies, hence the name. It's kind of a play on Gag Me with a Spoon. And we have been coming out since January 20th. We come out every Wednesday with a different slasher movie. So it's every single week. And so we've had 4 episodes so far with this, well, technically a fifth one with the sneak peek episode. Um, and it's on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So you can find us anywhere. And we're on Instagram. Our name's Gag Me with a Knife Podcast, and Twitter, Gag Knife Pod. And you can email us at gagmewithanifepodcast@gmail.com. So we're really excited because my co-host Alex and I are best friends, have been best friends for 20 something years, and we both love slashers. So we hope it's pretty funny, and we go through our review and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy the show. You guys have a lot of fun. You can tell you've been friends for a long time, and you guys both love the movies, so it's always fun. So, guys, check out Gag Me with a Knife. If you get a chance, you guys got a new episode coming out Wednesday, right? It's every Wednesday.
Yes, every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday, guys, check them out. If you love slashers, you're going to love Gag Me with a Knife. Now, it's Women in Horror Appreciation Month, and due to that, me and Emily got to talking earlier today and decided we would do a little something, but we're a little twisted, so we're going to do a little something different than what everybody else is doing. We're doing our top 5 badasses, female badasses in horror movie history. That's right, our top 5 women who kick ass. And Emily, I'm going to put you on the spot and have you go first with your number 5 pick.
All right. And I'm under the impression they don't have to be the final girl or anything like that. Just badasses in slashers horror, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just did slashers, so um, since that's my thing. So at number 5, I have Angela from not from Sleepaway Camp, but Angela from the Night of the Demon series. I think she's a total badass. She, I mean, every single movie she's in, she's just a total badass. I love her. So that's my number 5.
That's a pretty good pick. Uh, I I have to say, like, I was torn here about some of my choices because when you put the extra bit in there about it didn't have to be the final girl, it made me think a little bit and it made me switch up some of my choices, but some of them were too written in stone. So at number 5, I have Ashley Lawrence as Kirsty Cotton in Hellraiser. I I love that there were women in horror before they had this new age of horror where like the women are actually kicking ass in horror movies. They're like, kung fu masters and just kicking the hell out of everybody and stuff. Before that stuff came along, there were women in horror movies who kind of outsmarted their opponents. They were smarter than the bad guys. And I think that Stretch from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 falls into that. She's the only one who doesn't, get killed by these psychos in the movie. And I think that Kirsty does it here. She's able to kind of outsmart the Cenobites to a degree. I wouldn't say she outsmarted them, but they, came to a an appreciation for her ability to negotiate, and so they kind of decided to leave Kirsty alone. And she had the Cenobites to deal with, and Frank and Julia in the first film, and then you get into the second film, and they add a whole new villain with the crazy doctor, and then we have the added element of being in this hell dimension that she goes to. So yeah, I thought she did a great job. That's my number 5 pick, Ashley Lawrence as Kirsty Cotton.
I
So
think
let's.
this is an interesting list because you really I think that yours is the more your pick of my picks are more of just like I thought they were badass people and not necessarily like kicking ass, I guess.
Right.
I mean, they do kick ass to me, but I think this is going to be an interesting list for both of us because I think we kind of went different directions in it, which I think is really cool. So My number 4 is Allie from Sleepaway Camp. From Sleepaway Camp 2, because I think she's a total badass. I know that she gets killed. I know that she's a bitch, but she's such a good character, and she's so rude. And I would love to have her personality. I think she has a kick-ass personality. I mean, she is a bitch, but I I don't know. I just love her. I think she's badass. So that's my number 4, Allie.
All right, from Sleepaway Camp 2.
Yes. I mean,
All
yeah,
right.
she does get killed, and she is rude, but I mean, who doesn't I don't know. I guess not a lot of people want to be her, but I watched that and I was like, "Hell yeah, girl." Like you go.
So at number 4, I thought about this one for a minute because there was two pretty similar characters that I thought about it. Like, is it really a character or is it like an archetype? You know, is it like a template for a character? And what I came up with was Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween. You know, you can look at her as the basic scream queen. I don't know how, you know, if I'm just looking at the first film, a lot of people herald that film as like, wow, she really fought back and this and that. But to me, in that film, you know, she's the babysitter. She runs upstairs, she screams, she hides in the closet. She does try to fight back, but she doesn't defeat Michael until Dr. Loomis shows up and shoots him. So a guy has to show up and do something. And to me, that's a little bit lame at the end of that. You know, it has to be that way because of the Loomis Myers factor. But, you know, if you look at it, didn't you go to the 2018 movie and she's a totally different character, right? She is a badass. She is a like guerrilla warrior. You know what I mean? Like she's knows all these Home Alone tricks and all this stuff that she can use to fight Michael with. And so it kind of reminds you of the character that Linda Hamilton plays of Sarah Connor in Terminator, right? Because in the first one, she's very kind of aloof at the beginning of that film, like, oh God, there's a monster machine trying to kill me. But by the time we get to Terminator 2, she is like a almost supernatural badass. She is like able to kick people through walls and stuff. You know what I mean? Almost to that level. So I don't know if it's an archetype or if it's an individual character. But I went with Jamie Lee because she just means so much more to the horror genre. And 9 out of 10 people, probably not that many, probably 7 out of 10 people are going to tell you if you ask them who their favorite scream queen is, they're going to say Jamie Lee Curtis. I just didn't want to put it all on that first movie because I think that first movie is a little bit misleading about how feminist that character is, or
Yeah, I
wherever you want to,
agree.
you know what I mean? And it's a little
Well,
misleading. I
yeah,
think I would argue that some of the girls from your Slumber Party Massacre movies are a little more feminist than Jamie Lee's
yes.
character.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there's some Jamie Lee Curtis, Scream Queen, as the Scream Queen fans out there that are not going to be very happy when they hear Alex and I talk. I think we talk about her in X-Ray, the episode that we just came out with, and we dog her. I mean, we just dog her as a Scream Queen because until later on we talk about how in the 2018 one, and then H2O and Scream, the show Scream Queens. She's a badass, but I say something like, well, if you haven't noticed by now, none of in none of her early movies, like she just is kind of like a wimp. Honestly, that's and that I know a lot of people are gonna be like, like no,
It's
don't say that
true.
about her. And I'm like, come on. I mean, like Terror Train, Prom Queen, or Prom Queen, Prom Night, Halloween 1 and 2. I mean, in 2 she just cries the whole time.
You know,
We're just like what? I mean, yeah, she was in a lot of horror movies, so that makes her a scream queen. But was she really a strong final girl in any of those? I don't think so.
I was watching a movie the other night, and it really kind of hit me some of the difference in acting. Uh, so I can't even remember the girl's name right off the top of my head because she wasn't super famous, but the movie The Sentinel from 1977. I was sitting here watching that, and the girl is like backing up through the house from the ghost of her father, and she's screaming, and it hit me like there was a period in time where women acted like that, where I mean, on screen they acted like that. It wasn't. They don't act like that in real life. But while she was screaming, she's like running her fingers through her hair,
Right.
And I'm like, who does that? Who takes the time to like massage their head and pull their hair while they're screaming? And
Right.
but I loved it, and Jamie does a lot of that in the Halloween movies. She's got a little bit of a evolution on that, where hers is kind of like the hide and cry. She does the hide and cry.
Especially in part two. I think Alex is the one that in X-Ray, in the one about X-Ray, because X-Ray is kind of like a mix of Halloween 2 and then like I don't know, hospital movie, and maybe My Bloody Valentine. I don't know. It's kind of a mix, but yeah, he was like, well, I was just waiting for her to stop crying. I mean, like, or Jamie Lee in part two, he's like, she just all she does is just like crawl around and cry.
Right.
So yeah, but I mean, she's definitely a scream queen. But yeah. So
So
my number three,
right, number 3.
I am gonna go with Sheila from Slumber Party Massacre 2. She does not live. She's not the final girl, but she is strong. And if you notice, there's like a really big role reversal scene in that movie when the killer actually decides to come out and actually start killing them, because for the first, I don't know, hour of the movie, he's a figment of Courtney's imagination. But when he does come out, she's carrying TJ, her boyfriend. She's actually carrying him to the door, and she knocks on the door, and she can't get anyone to come to the door when the killer's after her. But she kind of plays the man's role, as she does throughout the whole movie. She just kind of a no nonsense, shut up TJ, that's her boyfriend, kind of girl. And I really love that. I love how strong she is, because I think she's stronger than Crystal Bernard's character, although she doesn't live. But Crystal Bernard has all this stuff going on in her mind, and she's all like, is this real, is it not, I'm having a psychotic break, and all this bad stuff happened in part 1. But Sheila's just like, I don't care, I'm gonna fight this guy.
I just rewatched part 2 here a while back, and when I was watching it, Regina came in, and she was like, "What the hell is this?"
Totally.
The part where, or one of the parts where he was singing, and the girls like shut the door, and the girl gets stuck on the other side of the door, and he drills her, and
She not her name is is it Sandy, or what is her name?
Can't remember off top,
She's I mean, I know this, I would know this if we weren't talking about it right this moment. The one that sings
Right.
Pie in the Sky. I love her. I love her. Yeah, she just stands there screaming for about 10 seconds while the drill
Yeah.
comes after her. Yeah.
It's hilarious, right? Like, that movie is hilarious, and I think they still hold up pretty good.
Sally.
Yeah, Sally.
Yeah. Oh, it
Uh,
holds up great.
so moving on, at number 3, I have Shauna McDonald as Sarah Carter in The Descent. Man, like we were talking about earlier, this is one point where it came up for me where I was wondering about, should it always be the final girl? Because you can make a strong argument for the other character in this, right? Juno, she loses out at the end, and she's a little like self-centered and a little malicious, but that doesn't always turn me off from people. you know, like, I understand sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Those
But
are the best for me. I love them.
right, I mean, like, let's be honest. Everybody's not going to act like Captain America in a situation like this. Some people are going to be like, I don't have to outrun them. I just have to outrun you, right? That's the mentality a lot of people have in these situations. So I thought about Juno. I mean, I actually like that character a lot, and because I even think that there's some indication maybe she was even a little bit more malicious than what they said. But anyway, yeah, I went with Sarah because she survived in one version. She survived, and then they had a sequel. So uh, I love that movie, and it's before all the girl power stuff started, like where people were like the Me Too movement and the being more inclusive of women and everything. It's really like right before all that starts and takes off, and they didn't have to be told to do it. That's kind of seems like a formula for something that works. Like they didn't have to be told, hey, you should make a movie, an all-female horror movie. They just wrote the script organically, and it came out like that, and it's an awesome movie. Uh, all the women in it are pretty awesome, I think. But yeah, I went with Shauna McDonald as Sarah Carter in The Descent at number 3.
And you are better than me. I did not have their I don't have their real names. So I just have their characters' names. But yeah, I do agree with that. Like I think all and I wrote a paper about this in college about how horror movies are actually pretty feminist. I know there's the TNA and stuff, and but they are that usually if a movie does well, it's a final girl. Usually the final guys don't work out as well. But I mean, I would argue that a lot of horror movies are very feminist because it's usually it's well, especially in my the slashers that I love, that it's usually a female character that survives, especially these like I know Slumber Party Massacre doesn't lend its name to being a feminist just because of the name, or Sorority House Massacre, but it's those movies like they band together and it's really cool. And the guys are very useless in those movies, like very useless. So my number two, and this is kind of a a lot of people probably haven't seen this movie, but Jude, her name is Judy, not. I almost put Judy from Sleepaway Camp on there just because I think she's a horrible, awful person, but I do think she's a badass. But it's Judy from Hide and Go Shriek, and that movie is different because there are a lot of people that survive that movie. Um, but compared to, I think the only other female character the only other female character that lives through the movie is and I do know her real name, it's Bunky Jones. Um she's just sitting here and she's a bawling mess, and I don't know if it's a mix of poor acting and overacting, and she just can't understand anything. But Judy really comes out and she's like, her whole demeanor changes. She's like, "We're gonna beat this guy. Like, let's get all the tools." She's trying to get this, her friend to get it together. She's like, "Get it together. We have to kill this guy." Um, so that's my number two because she's a total badass. I mean, she kind of gets everybody together. Everyone's kind of freaking out, and she's like almost crazy the way she looks. She's so badass. She almost looks crazy. Like, I'm not dealing with this. I'm not dealing with this dude.
That's a good pick. I don't know. It's weird for me. I'm not a woman, so that is the first thing that makes it pretty hard to
Oh, you're
grasp.
not?
Yeah,
I
I think if a lot of men just need to accept that fact right there. Okay, you're not a woman, so stop trying to understand it. But my thing is like with it's a constant argument. I could have it in my head forever. It's the reason why I don't talk about it out loud too much because it's something I still haven't reached a conclusion in my head about. But is the argument of exploitation versus empowerment? Okay, I see a woman who at first I'll be like I'll see a film from the 70s or something and I'll be like, man, that's really they're really exploiting this woman, and then I'll think, well, yeah, but at the same time that was an opportunity for her to do what she wanted to do, and a million women had that opportunity. She's the one that snatched it, and it's like she wanted to take her. She knew what it was. She took her shirt off. She wanted to do this. And then you have the other argument that comes back and says, yeah, but a bunch of greaseballs in a room gave her $5,000 and told her to do it. It's not like you have that argument goes back and forth of whether something is purely exploitative or whether it's empowerment for the woman if she accepts it as something to do. And I don't know, like it's something I think about it a lot of time, especially with like the Italian films, some of them like where
Yeah, that's an
just
interesting point. Yeah, that is, especially with the Me Too movement, because
right,
I mean, and I think that there are some instances where I don't know. Okay, I think that in the casting, because a lot of this the exploitation of the woman comes before the movie's even made. Like when we talk about Harvey Weinstein, all these producers that have
right,
in the Me Too movement, that comes on the casting couch more so. It's like, well, you're not going to be in a movie if you don't do this. But I
Right.
think there's a lot of women, especially women that want to change their image, that they find that is an empowering moment. I think that wait, I know that this isn't the greatest movie, but you watched Ice recently, and the Wednesday Adams, the
Mm-hmm.
girl that played Wednesday Adams is in that movie, and I 100% think that that was a move on her part to get away from her child acting and show herself as almost like I a Miley Cyrus kind of move of,
Right.
hey, I'm not a little girl anymore and I'm gonna
Right.
do what I want, and if I want to show my whole naked body, I'm gonna do it. uh, yeah, it's an interesting question because and a lot of those exploitation movies too, they end up empowering the woman at the end, like I Spit on Your Grave, or stuff like that. It's in that movie, it's necessary to have this exploitative scene in order for the audience to understand why she's exacting revenge. Yeah, I think that it's probably half and half. With those kind of things, like, did you feel like you had to do it, or did you want to do it?
Right.
Um, and if you look at movies like there's a like Slumber Party Massacre 2, for example, there's a Playboy model in that movie that in her contract refused to get naked, and they had her in the movie. So it is like, and that's a Roger Corman joint. So so that's kind of shocking, but I mean, they still had her in the movie. So yeah, it's an interesting point. I don't know. I think that it can, it's probably half and half, really.
That's interesting. That was
Yeah.
a power move on her part, right? She's
Yeah,
like,
I mean, because they were like, we still want you in it, and are you sure
right,
you don't want to get naked?
because she proved that she could, use her name instead of her body. I mean, she made a name off her body, but she proved that she could say, "Hey, you're lucky just to have me in the movie. I'm not getting naked for you." You know what I mean?
Exactly, and that's happened in I've heard that happen in quite a few movies. I think there's a Friday the 13th where that happened as well, and they ended up not casting her for that movie. That wasn't why, but they ended up casting her in the next one.
Mm.
So I don't know. I think it was the girl that's with the She was supposed to be the girl with the enchiladas guy, and I think she was in the next one or something like that.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure on that, but so do you want me to go ahead and do my number one, or?
No, I'm gonna do my number two and my
Oh,
number
right.
one.
Oh my gosh. You know what?
You forgot.
I haven't even been drinking.
I have. I've had like 3 cups of coffee, so
Oh, okay.
uh,
Well, there you
yeah.
go.
I'm gonna do my number two and my number one, and then because you're the guest, I always want you to go first
Oh,
and
right.
last.
Okay. That's how it was. Sorry about
All
that.
right. So at number two, I have Aaron from Your Next, played by Sharni
Oh,
Benson.
good choice. Oh God, I can't believe I didn't think about that. Good
I
choice.
love Aaron from Your Next. This movie turns the home invasion horror film on its head because these guys are having a bad day. They do take out several of the family members in the first part of the movie, which makes them formidable, makes them actual bad guys. We get, they're not just like the Home Alone villains who are slipping and falling and stuff. These guys are pretty formidable. They're taking people out left and right until they come upon Erin, the girlfriend of one of the sons at the house, and nobody knows anything about Erin. But what we find out is that her dad was a crazy survivalist in Australia and taught her, how to live off the woods and how to set traps for animals and how to defend herself. And yeah, these guys end up having and including one scene with a blender that I love. I always love that scene. I'll rewind it and watch it again every time I watch the movie. But yeah, Aaron from Your Next, that was my pick for number two. What do you think about that one?
That is, oh, I wish I had thought, because see, I was, for some, my mind just went slashers. Um, but that movie, You're Next, is probably my favorite movie that's come out in the last 15 years. I love that movie. She is such a badass. And what's funny is I had seen her already in the movie. I one of my guilty pleasures is the Step Up movies. Okay, I like the
Hmm.
dancing in it. I'm sorry, but she is in, I think, part 3 of Step Up, and so I had seen her in that. So I see I'm watching this movie and I'm like, oh, that's a girl from Step Up. And then she just like goes for it. And you're right that I don't know, like I thought The Strangers was creepy, but as a home invasion movie, but I am not the biggest fan of home invasion movies. But that movie, it was just so much fun. It totally flipped that whole subgenre on its head. Um, I could watch it over, and it has really good rewatchability, which is a major factor in when I give movies ratings. That's always a huge factor for me, and I can watch that movie over and over. I love it.
Yeah, Shawnee's been in a couple things. She was like you said, Step Up, and then she was in a movie right before this called Bait, a shark movie that's pretty good. It's an Australian shark movie. It's got her and I can't remember what's the guy's name. Julian Mann. He played on that show Nip Tuck.
Oh
it's a
yeah, yeah.
good Australian horror film. And
My dad even liked Your Next. So, well, I mean, he likes horror movies, but he's not a big fan of newer ones. And I
right.
had him watch that, and he was like, "That girl's awesome."
Oh yeah, she kicked. There would be no question that Erin's my favorite because there's no doubt with Erin. She's like Steven Seagal. Nobody even touches her in the movie. Usually in a
Yeah.
movie where there's a good guy, somebody they get their ass kicked quite a bit and then they win. Erin beats the hell out of everybody. You're
Yeah,
next.
and she's not okay. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of sci-fi, so I like the first Terminator, but like Sarah Connor kind of I don't know, she kind of gets on my nerves, and I'm not a big fan of like the typical uh badass female like in Alien or anything. Yeah, I'm just not. I don't know. It gets to be a little too much for me, like the Sarah Connor you know Sigourney Weaver's character, and I sorry I can't
Oh
remember her name
no.
right now. That I mean, I like them, but it's like this girl was unassuming.
Yeah,
Like you don't
you didn't
expect
see
it
it
at
coming.
all. Exactly, and
And
that's
she
what
just
I
kind
like
of
about
takes
her.
control of the whole movie at that
And
one
it's
at one point. Yeah.
yeah, and it's see the thing is she's very unassuming, but then when she does start going, she's totally believable. And that's I because that movie, if she hadn't played that part so well, it could have really, I don't know, fizzled because unless you had a character or unless you had an actress that could really play that character and make it believable, I think that it could have really fallen short. But you totally believe that she does have this background. I mean, she has that in her. She's able to pull that. She's able to switch from just being this little, this guy's girlfriend and whatever, sweet girl wants to impress the family, just completely switches into this like I'm a badass and I'm gonna kill all of you.
Yeah. And this is where you're going to be disappointed because my
It's gonna
number
be
one
Ripley, right?
pick is Ellen Louise Ripley, the badass of all badasses. This woman got little kids named after her running around.
I
and
have a friend named Ripley, so yes.
often she was just simply referred to as Ripley, but yes, she is the badass of all badasses when it comes to females in horror films. In my opinion, I mean,
No, don't get me
she
wrong. I totally do. I totally think she's a badass. I think Sarah Connor is a badass. I just was making the point that like you already know, they're already like I don't know, you already see that in them.
the thing I will say about Ripley is there's less evolution in her character than Sarah. Okay, like Sarah Connor and Laurie Strode and those kind of characters. The first time around, they're real weak. They're like, I can't believe this shit is happening to me. Weak. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just petrified in the corner. I can't believe this is happening. And then they slowly start to fight back in the first movie, and then by the time, they're by the time Jamie Lee came back for H2O, she was like, I'm killing this son
Oh,
of a
she was
bitch.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
You
And
know,
I actually,
like
and I always talk about I don't like the Halloween movies. I don't really, but I do like H2O. I do enjoy that one. She is a badass in that one.
But I never felt like that with Ripley. I always felt like she was a badass from day one. Like even there's the very first like really strong character establishing scene with Ripley in Alien is where after John Hurt's character the alien attaches itself to his face and she refuses to let the crew back on the ship. They
Yeah.
use that again later on in Prometheus with the Charlize Theron character, but that was the protocol. You know what I mean? Is that if somebody was infected with something, they weren't allowed to get back on a damn U.S. or whatever. I forget what their association's name was, but whatever ship, and head back to Earth.
Right.
Uh, and I thought right then she was. It was made to look like she's not just a girl. She was a chick doing her job, and she decided when this thing went down that she wasn't going to let it beat her. Just like any one of us would, any dude. Uh, or anybody else. I don't know, man. And then come on, in Aliens, the sequel, she is get away from her, you bitch, is one of the most classic lines in horror movie history. I even like, Alien 3. She's badass in Alien 3, and she has to like coexist with this population of male rapist prisoners or some, like these psychopaths to defeat the alien. She comes back in 4 as a clone, and now she's got like supernatural powers to kick alien ass.
Right.
And
Yeah, it's just I don't, I'm not a sci-fi person, so that probably turned me off in the first place, but I think this also this whole like talk between us shows a different like I think this is interesting. It shows a difference between how like guys view the empowering character as opposed to women because I mean, I'm not saying all women. I'm not going to speak for all women. But but I look at her character and I'm just like, ugh. Like I'm just like, oh, get off it. Then, like as a woman, I look at her and I'm just like, oh, get over yourself. But that's definitely not how men look at her
no, we see her
usually
as
at
like,
all.
for me, when I think about Ellen Ripley, I think about like John McClane from Die Hard, and I think about Indiana Jones. She's on that level, like of iconic badass character to me, and so it never mattered to me that she was a girl. I'll say that. So that would be I would maybe she is. Oh God, Emily, what the hell are you doing here? Because
I'm flipping you.
now you got me thinking about it. Because like she is like soaked in toxic masculinity, and for her to get approval from men in that way is
She
kind of
acts like
fucked up.
she acts like a man. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And but I'm not. That's a discussion for another day.
But
All right.
this is interesting. I mean, it is interesting because just like thinking about how a guy, because I mean, I know how I as a woman look at her as opposed to how I believe men to look at them at her as a woman. But it's yeah, another conversation. And
Well,
I will go back and say that when I was talking about Sarah Connor, I meant in part 2. I don't mean in part 1.
mm,
Because I don't they're so different.
oh yeah.
Terminators. I think Terminator 1's more of a horror movie. I think 2 is sci-fi.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's almost two completely different people in those movies.
Well,
Yeah.
Aliens and Terminator 2, both James Cameron, both very much, like let's take the horror movie and turn it into a sci-fi extravaganza, a huge,
Epic.
epic action film. So yeah, he did that with both of them. But so that's what I had at number 1 was Ellen Ripley, and Emily, we're gonna let you finish up. What do you have for number 1?
Okay, well, I do have an honorable mention, but I'm going to quickly say it because no one's going to know the movie. But it's Tammy from The Dark Power. She's badass. She lives. She's amazing. If you ever get a chance to watch the movie, she's nuts. So just, gonna say that. And my number 1 is I don't know. I feel like it's pretty boring, but it's Jenny from Friday the 13th Part 2. I feel like it's just completely obvious for me, but she's another. She actually reminds me a lot of the character from Your Next. Is that her name? Erin?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. She actually reminds me a lot of her because she's very, she comes in there and she's a badass, but she doesn't take any from Paul. She's like, she's already just like, shut up, Paul, from the very beginning.
Right.
She's like, she doesn't care. She doesn't care if she's late. And then at the end, she is by far the strongest, I think. It's between her and Megan from Part 6, if I had to talk about just the Friday the 13th on the strongest females. But Jenny for sure beats Megan. She is so smart, and she uses her child psychology against him, and she is terrified, but she pushes that aside. She's so good at just pushing that under and being like, I have to do this. I have to put on this dead woman's sweater and act like his mom. And she's a badass. So she's my number one.
Yeah, I always liked her too, and I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes I get my movies mixed up. But I think there's a scene in that one where she's sitting in a bar with him, right? And she's the
Yes.
first one that starts to be like, "Hey, things are weird." And have
Yes,
you heard
she
this?
is. Hmm.
This story about this kid Jason that could be real, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And everybody, and in your mind, you're like, they have no idea that Jason's like, not only alive, but he's actively killing people back at camp right now. You
Well, she
know,
really humanizes him in that scene too, because
right?
she says something about, I mean, he's just, he could just be this scared little boy that's, if he is real and he's killing people, maybe he's just doing it because he saw his mom died and he's, uh,
But
has all this
man,
stuff mentally wrong with him and he's scared.
that scene really, like you were talking about with the other scene at the end, that's how they connect that bridge. Like you see that in that scene that she understands him. She has like an understanding for him, and that's how she's able to defeat him at the end, right? So pretty cool.
And if it's okay, is it okay if I quickly just say, because Alex did have some great ones. Alex told my co-host did tell me a few, and if I could just quickly list them. He,
Absolutely not.
oh,
We're not doing that under any
okay.
circumstance. So we have 5 picks from Alex Pearson, who is the co-host at Gag Me with a Knife. Alex is a cool dude. He's very funny. Like Alex is a lot of comic relief on the show that they
He
do.
is
He,
a
he cracks
lot
me up.
of girls. Really.
So yeah, let's hear Alex's picks. I
Oh, you
mentioned.
said absolutely not, and I was like, oh god, okay.
Yeah, right. Whatever.
Uh, I'll quickly go through them. Um, okay, so his number 5 is Taryn from Dream Warriors. Great pick. She is a badass. She does get killed, but she's the one with the heroin
She
addiction.
even says it right in my
Yep,
dream.
and
I'm bad
bad.
at. Yeah.
Yeah. Number 4, he had Sydney Prescott from Scream. I don't think she's very strong, but okay, Alex. Um, Number 3, he has Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street. Another one that she does get strong, but it's yeah. Number 2, he has Angela from Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3. He loves her, total
Yeah.
badass.
She's
And
crazy.
then she's nuts. And then number 1, he told me he had to look this up to make sure it could be considered a slasher. So, and he said it did. So, he said it. Geraldine from Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah,
Man, that's a good pick. Oh wow, Alex, you got me on that one, buddy. Yeah, that was a good pick. That should have made my top 5.
he
Man,
wrote. I did. He wrote. I didn't know it was considered a slasher at first, and looked it up to confirm. So,
she's such a badass that she not only makes it through the movie, but becomes like if it sucks that there wasn't another movie because she kind of becomes like the hero. She becomes the knight, or
yep,
the yeah.
yeah. So that is his top 5, and he is hilarious. He's the I don't know the I'm trying to make an analogy and I can't think of one right now. He's the Curly to my Mo, and we don't have a third one. So
All right. Okay. Yeah, you guys are fun. I like guys. If you want to, the best way to listen to Gag Me with a Knife is go get your footy Spider-Man pajamas on, build your blanket tent in your bedroom, put your lamp in there, and then turn the show on and listen to it. That's what it
I
sounds
agree.
like. It's like hanging out with your buddies and talking about horror movies, uh, and who doesn't love that, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we've been doing it for years, so we finally put it on, put a recording behind it. So
All right, Emily, thanks for being on. I had fun. I mean, this was kind of like an impromptu thing, but we wanted to do something for women in horror for the month, and hadn't done anything yet. as far as on my channel. I've done some stuff in the group. I'm sure you've seen or whatever, but we hadn't done anything on the channel yet. So I want to thank you for coming on and helping out.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I will say on Wednesday our episode is going to be about the whole Slumber Party Massacre series. So and it's for the Women in Horror Month. So I'll also be showing that. I'll be doing a bunch of watch parties. I did one yesterday, but I think I'm going to do a few where it's all three of the movies. So check that out on our Facebook is Scary Movies All Night Long. And so yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And guys, don't worry. I'm gonna link you up. Go down to the description of this video, and I'm gonna hit you up with all of Emily's stuff, her podcast links, and links to her group, everything on Facebook. And yes, Emily, thanks. We had a great time. We will talk to you next time.
Thank you so much, Jay. You're awesome.
All right, bye.
See ya.